Hello, can you hear me? Ashley, welcome. I'm not sure how many people are going to be joining us, so probably dive in pretty quick. Can you hear me? Just maybe turn your mic on. There you go.
Yeah, we're here.
How you doing?
Good. Here we go.
Good. Hey, Bobby.
Hey,
I don't know how many people are going to jump on, so the busier one is the one at 11 or sorry at noon. I got I got quite a few guys that jump on that one. That's the paid group though, so that's why it's busier. But anyway, so yeah, I guess I'll get started. If anybody jumps in, they can catch up later. Yeah, so today's mastermind Q&A, I've only got half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Because I'm actually in a lawyer's office right now, but and they let me use the boardroom. But this is great. We can maybe dive into what you're a deal that you're working on. So I uploaded a video about the most important skill in real estate. I don't know if you saw it, but it's basically how I do my lease ups. Because without a tenant, you have no income, right? So
Hmm.
did you get a chance to look at that? There was some PDFs as well.
I didn't. Was that under week three?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
No, there
take a
was
look
just the one video I think there. We looked this morning and we watched it. I think it was about a 27-minute video.
in week 3.
Let me see.
And then there's a couple of PDFs in there too. Just let me check. Um, Yeah, so there's the YouTube, and then there's the tenancy agreement that I use and the flow chart, which is it's got all these clickable links on it for
Okay, yeah, I think we watched that
yeah,
there.
we did.
so you can use this flow chart if you want. I mean, I print it out, I put it on the wall, and then like
Hmm.
Red is like my leasing agent guy, and then the one that does the ads, and then I got somebody else that looks after filtering them and doing credit checks and all that stuff. And then the acceptance goes to somebody else. And yeah, I guess blue would be like my guy Joe does all the kind of blue work where he's meeting them and he's got a really good nose for people, so he can kind of give them a tentative approval. And then my
Hmm.
back office does the credit check and the, you know, all the money stuff. And then once
Hmm.
he's approved and I sign the lease, then Joe takes care of the move in after. And then yeah, the office kind of makes a welcome basket. And anyway, if you watch the video, you got the gist of it. So
Yep, we
um
watched that this morning.
okay. So this one, yeah, so that's what I covered this week. So I won't go over it again. Did you guys get a chance to practice your introduction, like when you're introducing yourself? I mean, you probably do this a lot, Ashley, already. Like, hey, I'm a realtor, or whatever it is, and I can help you find your ideal property in Newell or.
No, we didn't get a chance to practice that, but I didn't see the video that you have here on the screen, but we watched the one that you had just showed, like with the color coding and stuff, so I'm not sure where.
Oh, okay. Well, that you know what? It was probably a recording for the other group, but basically, like I would say something like hi. So when you're meeting someone for the first time, you go to a party or whatever, the question inevitably comes up, hey, what do you do? And
Hmm.
and you got to have like a canned response that's interesting enough where if they want to know more, potentially, they could turn to a business partner or client or some kind of a, important connection down the road.
Hmm.
And you make a Rolodex or you have them as a contact in your phone. Ideally, every conversation you're having, you want to grab contact details so you can be in control of the follow-up. And they say, oh, what do you do? And you say something like, hi, my name's Sam. I help I help people make money in real estate. And what do you do? And I always follow it up with a question like, what do you do? Because that um, people love to talk about themselves. And if when you ask them that and ask questions about that, follow-up questions, you get a lot of information about them, what their goals are. So maybe they're not interested in real estate at all, and you just engage in small chat, or they're if you're meeting at like a real estate investing event, like I was at last night, they're probably there because they're interested in rental property or real estate of some kind, or they own some already. So that if you're going to real estate specific events, like you guys, me coming to Vancouver would be like you guys driving to Calgary, and I'm sure there's
Mhm.
tons of meetups there. Or really, the game changer for me was when I started hosting meetups in Kamloops, and then all of a sudden, because you're hosting things just like what I'm doing right now with you guys, you're getting a lot of local, you're getting authority in your local market, being known as like I was known kind of as Mr. Kamloops. Everybody in Vancouver that had a question about Kamloops, I was getting phone calls about that. And then that led to some investors coming onto some of my projects. So that's something for you to practice, is making like a really concise, compelling elevator introduction. You should be no longer than like an elevator speech is more pitching a deal. Like, I've got, I need $100,000 and I'm projecting a 15% return. The money's it's going into this property that's undervalued by $40,000. Whatever your specific deal is, that would be more the pitch side. But first, you want to make the introduction.
Okay.
So, like, yeah, sometimes I'll say I manage real estate or I'm in real estate and just leave it at that, because people, and then they assume I'm a realtor or a property manager, and I'm fine with that. Sometimes I don't want to really get into it, but
Right.
yeah, you can say like I help people make a lot of money in real estate. Maybe that's too spammy. Um, or like, like I'll say, oh, I've been investing in real estate with partners for about 10 years, and you just leave it at that. How about you? Right. And now they
Mhm.
know that you're actively working with other people and maybe they're interested. Oh, this is a real estate person and I don't have one yet. So, then maybe if they're interested, they'll ask you more questions about your business and your track record and stuff. So,
Yeah, what it is you're doing exactly.
yeah. So, I've been investing in real estate with partners for 10 years. Like I found that to be really good. It's short, concise, there's no jargon. Um, and then you always, how about you? And then you make mental notes of the conversation with the people you're having, and then
Mhm.
add it to your Rolodex. Hopefully you get their contact information, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, or their phone number is great. And then you can, once you know what their goals are, then you can help with that. Maybe they need a contractor and you connect them with somebody you trust who's a good contractor. And the more people you help, the more you likely are to achieve your goals. So yeah, for the next call, maybe come up with something that's like an introduction that you can use all the time, that comes out without even thinking about it. Whenever you hear that question, what do you do?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, I help other people make money. In real estate, I've been investing with others for 10 years, something like that. So, um, today, right now, I want to talk about analyzing properties. And this is a guy named Jason Hartman in the picture here. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so Jason has been in real estate for a long time in the US, and he's got a great tool that I use. It's an app you can put on your phone. Um, it only works for Mac or iPhone, or you can get it on your tablet as well. But there's also a website which I put there. I can send you these slides later. But yeah, it's called Property Evaluator, and I thought I'd just run through analyzing a couple properties. One's from the US that a guy sent me, that he's interested in buying in a town called Clinton, Iowa, and then the other one is a property in Kamloops that recently changed hands, and you can kind of compare what your expected rate of return would be. So why don't we dive into that? So it's just the tool that I use. Once you figure out where your target market is in the, by using the TRAS method to see where you are in the real estate cycle, then you can actually start looking at properties and see if any of them make sense. So this is like the report that it generates. Where are you guys in Brooks, do you think? Did you finish that chart, the TRAS method chart?
Yeah, we finished it.
You got it.
So, um,
The 13s.
we got a lot of 13. So
Okay.
like we're in like showing the recovery stage, maybe,
The middle to the end of it.
Oh, so maybe at the beginning of the boom.
possibly. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, this is a great time to be getting in because you're still got some lower prices lingering from potentially from being in the slump. And you've got room to grow and room to increase rents if you buy something.
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah, so this is a listing that somebody texted me and I started to just to play with it, to look at it. So it's in a little town called Clinton, which is, there's some information readily available on various websites. Here's the actual listing, and it consists of 8 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom units. And it looks, very cheap. It's 385,000 US, and rent is between, and I think they renovated 5 of the units. I don't know if you can see the photos, but the renovations look, fairly nice.
Mhm.
And yeah, and you get $700-800 a month in rent. So on the face of it, I mean, it looks like a pretty good deal. But then there's some information in the listing. There's a description about it, the photos, where it's located. I mean, I've never been to this town. I think it's about 15,000 people or something like that, or 20,000 people. So there's so many, and there's a lot of this guy lives nearby, so he's looking at lots of places here.
Mhm.
And he seems to have a sense of that real estate market. So yeah, I mean, there you got your annual tax numbers. The tax assessed value is actually a lot lower than
Super low.
than the asking price.
Mhm.
And when I was doing some digging, I was like, I was looking at it, I was like, well, what's the vacancy rate here? And I was actually surprised. Well, it looked like, oh yeah, so this is the website where you can get the evaluator tool, because it's not on the App Store,
Okay.
but you can just download it off this website, I think. Yeah, here, so you can buy it for Mac or iPad or iPhone, and it says it's not available in my country region. Anyway, I bought it a while ago. There's a way to get it, but you can also just you can subscribe and just use it on the website, potentially even for free.
And what is it? Property Tracker? Is that the website?
Um,
Tracker.com.
yeah, I mean, there's lots of property evaluator apps, and I got a paper-based one too. I'll send to you. I'll make up a PDF of it, but this, using the software, just kind of speeds everything up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can sign up for a free account, and then it'll generate reports for you. But anyway, so I started plugging numbers into it, and it's kind of nice to have a template, right? So just move this a little bit. So so some of units here, they're all roughly, they're all 2-bedroom, 1-bath. They are roughly, between 700-800 a month. So I used $700, about 800 square feet each. And so that gives you kind of your units. There's the initial market. They're asking 385, I think. So I put in there, I'm gonna buy it for $20,000 less because you never want to pay full ask. And then the mortgages in the US are about 6.2% for 30 years. And I'm assuming 75% loan to value. Because I think you should be able to get that. So your down payment is 91,000. You've got buying costs, so you can add all those in, whatever they're going to cost in your local market. And you
Mhm.
always want to have a reserve fund because something could go wrong that you missed in your due diligence and you're going to have to pay. There could be other costs as well, especially with a multifamily building. Like in BC, most lenders are going to want you to get an phase 2 environmental report, and that can be, a few $1,000. You got to pay for a survey. If not, you got to pay for title insurance, and it all depends on the size of the property. And you're also going to need a building inspection report for bigger buildings. It could be $10,000 for smaller ones. I mean, residential housing, what it's like, right? So
Mhm.
this is 8 units, so it's going to be more than just like a single family home. So anyway, that's just estimated buying costs, but like in BC, you also pay a property transfer tax, so you would put that in here as well. And it's a certain 1% on, or it's 0 on the first 200,000, and 1% up to 500,000, and then 3% up to 1.5 million, and then 5% over that. So back for the property transfer tax in BC can really add up. I don't think you have that in Alberta, and they don't have it in a lot of the states, but that's why you need to know your local market. And ideally, you're working with a local realtor who can help you with that. So gross rents is there, 700 a month times 8. And then actually Clinton has almost one of the other websites I was reading says it has about a 20% vacancy rate. So and they've actually had declining population for the last 10 years. That city's shrunk from about 25,000. Now it's about 20,000. So, and I don't see any major signs of any industry or anything coming in that's going to add more jobs and get the population back up. And most people living there in their between 30 to 45. So are they going to be having more babies and growing the population that way? Probably not. So this market wouldn't be anywhere probably close to the top of my to go this far and actually look at properties in this market. I probably just would do a quick analysis of it and say, 20% vacancy, declining population.
Not
Next,
good.
unless there's
Yeah.
a really good story, like there's a major project coming in, and like there's a new mine being reopened or something. You need some kind of
Mhm.
economic driver
Yeah.
that's going to bring people there. So it's kind of a dead town, flat. It's been flat for a long time. So I'm going to use that 20% vacancy, which means you've got 1 or 2 units out of the 8 vacant at all times, right? So that really drops your operating income. And then, I'm going to have to pay a property manager, probably, 10% is what I picked of the revenue, because I'm not there to manage it. And even if I was, you gotta pay yourself something to do it, because if something happens to you, somebody's got to do it. So you got to pay market rates for management. You don't want to miss that. You want to make sure your taxes. I put utilities. Every unit in this building has its own meters, so the tenants would be paying the utilities. But like if I got 2 vacant units every month, then I got to pay those utilities. So
Mhm.
$50 a month per unit, times 12 months. That's why I have that number there. And then I'm going to be competing pretty hard to fill those units. So I'm going to spend at least $100 a month, on paid ads probably. And then cleaning and maintenance. This is just like your building inspection report will help you set a budget to know actually how much your maintenance costs are. I don't know how much snow they get in Iowa. Do I need to add a line item for snow removal? It could be a lot higher than this, could be a lot less. I don't know the age of the hot water tanks and the furnaces. So do I need to have a line item for the replacement of those in the next couple of years? I've only got a $10,000 reserve fund here in my buying costs, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and then if you buy it in a corporation, you're going to be paying lawyers and accountants to do your annual filings and utilities and taxes, and you can make your expense column as long and as detailed as you want, but I've just kind of estimated things here. So I've got, oh yeah, and then important here. So there's your mortgage payment. And then future improvements. This is an important thing to do. So like in year one, I assume that I'm gonna have to replace something for $5,000. Like someone's hot water tank, maybe two people's hot water tanks are gonna go, and I'm gonna have to fix that. Or maybe I gotta do one furnace, right? And then 5 of the 8 units have been renovated nicely, like those photos you see. And
Mhm.
I just read this in the description. So that means that, there's another 3 that need to be done. So I'm assuming I got to spend $10,000 per unit. And I'm going to do one of those in year 1, one of those in year 2, one of those in year 3. So these are future improvements that are going to impact the cash flow over the first 3 years of ownership. So that's why I've added $10,000 per year here. Can you see this, or is it too small for you?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, and then the roofs were all done in 2015, it says there, so I'm assuming they're gonna last another 10 years, but I want to budget 25,000 just as a ballpark to do all those roofs again in about 10 years. So that's kind of some of the projections, and like I say, as you do more diligence on a property and spend more time on it and start paying for inspections, you're going to get more information, be able to drill these numbers down a lot better. So in the first year, you can see because of the future improvements in year 1, you're actually negative cash flow at first year. So now instead of a reserve fund of 10,000, now you've only got 9,000 in that reserve fund. So, and if you use up the reserve fund and you're negative, then you're going to be feeding the property every month, and that's really bad investment. So once you put all the data in, okay, yeah, and then there's other stuff that you can do with your, when you're using a calculator like this, you want to, is the property going to appreciate? Well, with inflation, it probably will, but there's no appreciation or increase in prices likely thanks to, economic drivers, which you need jobs and people moving in to get inflation or to get the, property price appreciation that is higher than inflation. So I only put a 1% appreciation rate. And if you buy wrong, like maybe this is $100,000 overpriced. I don't know. Like, so anyway, you can put 0% or 1% appreciation here. There's that 20% vacancy rate that I'm assuming for the term of the hold. There's the expense. Income, maybe you can raise the rent a little bit. 1% a year is not much. And expenses always go up. So I just left that at 3%. So I'm going to assume the taxes are going to go up 3% a year. Hopefully not. And that my utility costs and advertising costs and property management fees are going to all climb every year. And yeah, there's the loan to value. Like if I'm going to refinance, I pay the mortgage down over the course of the 30 years, or say 20 years in, I want to refinance. And then the compounding period for the mortgage, I think in the US it's annual, so I'm just going to change that. In Canada, it's always semi-annual. And then you can pick here how many years do you want to show in your report for the buy and hold column. And then you can upload all your photos here. And then what this thing does is it spits out a report, right? So, there's a cover page. I always say something in here, real estate's risky. You could lose all your money. This is an offering that's only, you got to comply with securities legislation wherever you're trying to get people to partner with you. So in the US, they're governed by the SEC. In Alberta, it's the Alberta Securities Commission, and BC Securities Commission. Every province, we're not federally regulated as far as selling securities or selling investments. So every province in Canada has its own securities commission you got to comply with. So if the deal's in Alberta and your investors are only Albertans, well, now you're only having to deal with the Alberta Securities Commission and those rules. But all the rules are fairly similar. But if I'm getting people in BC to invest in Alberta, now I got to comply with the BC securities legislation as well. So if you're raising money, you either got to know the exemptions very well for every province or jurisdiction that you're operating in, or you have to, hire a lawyer that knows how to do that. So there's the overview. If things just stay stable, then I'm going to make 10% a year over 10 years. And then the sale price is going to be slightly more in 10 years. And you can set all this, right? So If I sold in 10 years for 400,000, then I would be making 10% a year. And there's some charts and graphs and stuff, and it basically summarizes everything. But it spits out a report that you can show. You can make a feature sheet with the the highlights, like, joint venture with me, and or buy shares in my company. The deal will make 10% a year. We'll do a 70-30 split, so that means you're going to make 7% a year on your money, which isn't great, but it's not horrible either. So, that could be enough to entice somebody. Okay, yeah, sure, you can have 100,000, especially if you're taking on the risk of the mortgage, and if there's a much better upside. So, you go through, and it kind of like tells you year by year how things are going to look as far as your income and operating expenses. And maybe you've got a really nice property in a nice part of town, and yes, the town has a 20% vacancy, but tell you what, I have a 4% vacancy because I'm so good at filling units. Like whatever. Maybe you've got maybe you got the best place in town, and that's going to make your operating income $10,000 higher. And then so then here's your cash flow. You're losing money in the first year, very little money in the next 2 years, because you've got $10,000 a year for the first 3 years renovating units. And then your monthly cash flow goes up over $1,000. So potentially, if it's cash flowing and your reserve funds are in good shape, your reserve funds should be between 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses just sitting in cash. So potentially then you could start paying, like if it was a 70-30 split on the deal, you could pay yourself $300 and your investor $700 a month, for these years. But now maybe you want to save that money because you've got this $25,000 expense for that roof coming up in year 10. So either you're selling the property then, or you're putting the roof on. And so that potentially could be zero cash flow for those first, there's 12,000 a year. So maybe there's zero cash flow for the first 5 years because you're saving up for that roof. And then the next 5 years you're collecting cash flow. And then this just shows the loan balance being paid down over time. And here's your internal rate of return. So if you sell in the first 5 years, your internal rate of return is only about 6% a year. If you sold at year 9, then you're up over 10%. Year 10, because of that roof, drops a little bit. But yeah, you're basically, just over 10% internal rate of return. So if you want to bring on investor partners and you have a good property, you probably want to be closer to, everybody's got a different risk profile on what they want to invest in. And if it's a smaller deal, so there's enough money in it for you to put it all together, you might want to do a 50-50 split with somebody, right? But that basically tells you, like, if the project's only making 10% a year, 50-50 is 5%. So if your investor might not be interested in that because they can just put it in a GIC or something for 5 years, make the same, right? A lot less hassle potentially. So yeah, these are the itemized improvement costs over the different years, and buying costs. So that's basically a tour of the software. And then, like, I can do a property that recently sold in Kamloops as well. I won't go through all the numbers, but I'll just show you, like, these are real numbers on a real house. So, for 529,000 Canadian, recently sold for, you put in your down payment of 160,000 Canadian, which is, I think it's less than 110,000 US. Or no, it's slightly more, but yeah, there's negative cash flow there in the first year. I forget why. But let's just look at the expenses here. So yeah, so management fees are 10% still. And the insurance is oh no, that's right. Insurance, management fees, cleaning and maintenance. Future improvements. Oh, the mortgage payments are, maybe the mortgage payments are too high. Let's take a look at the mortgage. So we got a 5% mortgage for 80% of the purchase price. So that's eating up. That's eating up quite a bit. Oh, the income's no good. Let's fix the income, because this income. No, that's good.
Hmm.
Where's all my, why do I have 13,000? Operating. Oh, 8% vacancy. Oh, why is the mortgage payment 4,000 a month? It's too high. What did I do here? I don't know. Let's see if that changes at 4%. Maybe the loan to value is too. Anyway, this property obviously doesn't cash flow. Like, you're not going to buy something that's losing. You can do stuff with your debt. Oh, that's why the term's only 10 years. So typically you're going to have a 25-year term. So, or sorry, a 25-year amortization. That's the problem with some of these American calculators. There, that's better. So if you buy it, you get a 25-year mortgage on the property. The term comes up every 5 years, but it's amortized.
For
So you
25,
got to be careful
Yeah.
with that. So now,
Mhm.
now the payment's a lot more.
half the price. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're still negative cash flow on this one. You know, the rent could probably go up because this one has a basement suite. So, you know, you're probably 2,000 up, 1,500 down. So, but you're still a bit negative here. So at this purchase price, this property doesn't really seem to make sense just at first blush. You could, you know, there's probably some things you could do to make it work if you really believe in that market and you think it's going to go up. If you're self-managing or whatever. Or if you're, you know, if you're putting more money down. So let's say, you know, let's say, or yeah, that's not. No.
85 down.
Well, let's go 70% mortgage, and let's drop that to 4%. Let's see if that does anything. Not really. I mean, it still looks like you're losing
On the
money.
negative.
But you know, the appreciate, the vacancy rate is at 8%. So that's where you'd be vacant one month out of the 1 month out of the year on a single home. But if it's got a basement suite, you're not going to be vacant that much. The vacancy rate in Kamloops is closer to 3%. So if we just use that, you're still negative cash flow. So this really isn't a great investment. It was initially purchased for like $380,000 a long time ago. So, you know, if you use that number, oops. You know, now you've got really good cash flow, right? So it really depends on, whoops, 38,000. There we go. Or yeah, 380,000. There, now you've got some cash flow, right? So anyway, it's easy if you make an error on this, it's easy to either bypass a property because you've overstated your expenses, and maybe it would be a good deal, especially if you can increase the income by adding a basement suite or whatever it is, which could add, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And it's very easy to make yourself a millionaire on these spreadsheets when reality is a lot different. So you got to be super careful in your diligence and make sure that your assumptions make sense, right? Like, you know, I'm assuming there's the assumptions. I'm assuming 3% a year appreciation, and that could be very aggressive depending on your market, or that could be very, very conservative, you know, because this place, 10 years ago was in the 300s, and now places are selling the 500. So there was $200,000 increase in property price that probably happened over a course of 3 years, right? So at this property. So, but they're just projections, and yeah. So that's a rundown of this. And that's pretty much all the time I have. Do you guys have any questions or anything that you want to hammer out while we're together here for the next 5-10 minutes?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you?
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, I
Just
mean,
keep
if
plugging
you
away
like,
at it.
if you like your local market, then the thing to do is to start running some of the properties that you see available. Like there was that building that you were looking at. Start getting all the information you can and start running it through some kind of analysis software like this.
Mhm.
And I'll send you the paper one because sometimes it's useful. I mean, I think it's 8 pages long or whatever. And there's a lot of line items and calculations that you do manually by hand, but it's a useful exercise to go through the paper so that you don't, accidentally pencil a deal incorrectly in software.
Okay,
But the nice thing about software is it makes all these calculations for you very quickly so that you can see, is my business plan for this property, does it make sense? Like the property next door, all the units are renting for double this one, and this one's full of druggies. So I can buy it for 50 cents on the dollar and spend a lot of money on renovation and kicking all the druggies out. Or like it's a vacant building, sometimes those exist. And a major project just opened and everybody needs housing. So I need to spend, $120,000 to renovate it to make it acceptable to live in, and then I can fill it. So usually you can buy like vacant properties for pretty cheap, or sometimes you can go and because of a bank foreclosure or whatever, you can buy a property for cheap, and then you can improve it and then get that rental income. And now the property is worth, a lot more, and then the cash flow numbers make sense. But you might be just be dumping money into a property for the first year or 2 years before you start seeing any returns.
Right.
So, and it all depends on the strategy you want to do too. So you might have, this would even be useful for you, Ashley, as a realtor. You do an analysis like this on every one of your listings. So now when you're showing it to prospective buyers, you could show, here's a projected return on your money. And here's where we are in the real estate cycle. So like if you buy now, like there's no guarantee, there's no guarantees in life, but you're gonna make freaking 20% of your money.
Mhm.
Even with a 60% loan to value, which should be pretty easy for almost anyone to get. And that goes for somebody living in the property and renting out the basement because they got to live somewhere anywhere. So so for the rent, you would add in what they would pay for rent for a comparable property. And the nice thing about living in the property is when you sell, that your gains are all tax free, right? So, but you can show people, even first time home buyers, this would help maybe push them into making that big financial commitment because they can see, I'm gonna make as much money in this as Tesla stock or whatever it is, or more, and then I also have the security of a place to live without the fear of being evicted or the property selling or whatever. So yeah, and I have it right on my phone too, so you can quickly spit out a PDF report.
Yeah, pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and I use this, it's not a perfect tool. There's spreadsheets that do it as well. But you can use it for properties with 1 unit or up to, however many units you want, right?
Mhm.
So yeah,
Cool.
like this one's bigger. Do I have any? Oh, there we go. Like I inputted every single unit in for this property, right? There's 49 units.
Oh, wow.
And I went and took the measurements for every single one and the actual rents from the actual rent roll
Yeah.
in there, right? And like you can see some of these guys, this guy's been living there a long time, his rent's really low,
Yeah.
$900 compared to other, it's half, right? So there's an opportunity
Mhm.
there
Yeah, raise them up.
to raise them up, right? In Alberta, you just need to give a year's notice, I think. In BC, you gotta wait till they die or evict them for bad behavior if they're like a drug dealer or something, so.
Oh, really?
I don't think we need a year here.
Yeah, I don't know what the notice amount is, but every market's different, so.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to talk about anything else?
No, I don't think so. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for
Lots
jumping
of
on.
interesting things for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and if you're dealing with a multifamily property like this, there's like, I'm really curious to see your analysis of that apartment building that you're looking at. Because if you can raise the rents by a significant amount, like your cap rate in Brooks is what, 8% or something? So
Yeah, I think it was less than that.
you think? Okay, well, how many units was that one you were
Well,
looking at again?
well, it was three buildings by the end of it,
Yeah.
but like the first one was a 29 unit.
Okay, 29 units. And how much could you raise the rent on those 29 units? $100 each?
No, it was significant because like the one bedrooms were at 800, I think, or less, and you could get like 1,050, and then it was like 900, 950 for the two bedrooms, and you could get 1,250 or
Okay,
13.
so let's just conservatively call it $200 more a month. So that
Or-
would increase the income by 5,800 a month if you once you do it to all the units. You multiply that by 12. So now like the building shouldn't really cost that much more to upkeep. Your expenses are fixed. So but you've got $69,000 more income per year. You divide that by the cap rate in Brooks. And if it's 8% or 7% or whatever it is, the lower the number, the higher the multiple is. But
Mhm.
now you've increased that building value by $870,000, right?
Yeah,
So if you got 29 units and you spend $10,000 each, right? That's $290,000, right? So, you're,
I don't even think you'd have to.
yeah, maybe you don't have to. Maybe it's $5,000 each. But anyway, you've increased now your wealth by 580,000, and you spent 290 to get there. So now you go to your lender and you say, look, the building is now worth close to $600,000 more. I'd like to increase the loan by 3 or 400,000 or whatever they'll approve you for. So now you've got all of your investment back potentially. Potentially you have your down payment back and all of your
Renovation.
and all your renovation costs as well, just from refinancing the building, and then you can go out and do another one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're at a 5 cap, then the multiple is even bigger, right? Because like, what I forget what it was. Was it 800, 600,000? Right? No, it wasn't that much. Was it 69,000 a year?
Yeah.
200 times 29 times 12. Yeah, so if you divide that by a 6 cap instead of 8, well now it's $1.1 million, right? Instead of,
Yeah, it's
you
it's
know,
a beautiful thing.
yeah, so that's where getting into 5 units or more, getting into commercial financing is really powerful. Because if you're under, if you're in a fourplex or duplex or house or whatever, that property is only going to be worth whatever a similar property in that same real estate market is selling for. Whereas if you can get into commercial financing, you can make that building worth a lot more by figuring out a way to increase the income. So that's why I like playing in that space almost exclusively now. But there's more risks,
Yeah,
bigger
that's why I
numbers.
want to get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you get even if you got a sixplex or something, you just do it by yourself, you're still able to leverage the financing that's available. So anyway, I'll
Mm-hmm.
close out of that. Somebody else needs this boardroom. They said they were gonna kick me out at 10:45. So
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
yeah, I'll add the paper due diligence thing and you can play around. There's lots of property analysis software out there. So maybe you find a better one that's available on the App Store right now. Or you use the one that's on the website there. But
Mhm.
Bigger Pockets probably has a lot of good tools available. I haven't been on there in a long time, and I just use this because it's what I've used for years. So.
Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, Bigger
Yeah, the
Pockets.
Real Canadian Investors podcast I've been watching, they used like a realist one I was
Yeah,
looking into.
yeah. So just pick whatever tool you want to use, and you get familiar with it. You can get really fast at doing analysis, and then you can put a business plan together that makes sense to an investor. And if you can't do it, or if you can't do it by yourself, then you can ask people to invest in your projects. So, and I'll get more
Yeah.
into that. I'll get more into that later. How to you got to convince people that you're competent and honest, and it helps to have a track record. But if you don't have a track record, sometimes if it's a good deal, people will still invest, and maybe you take a smaller piece of the pie on your first deal just to gain that track record. Maybe you
Yeah.
only have 10% of the upside instead of 50%, so.
Yeah, unless you have good private money lenders.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you qualify for that. Or maybe you've got a lot of equity in your home and you use a home equity line of credit, and that's what you use, and you just invest by yourself. But if you
Mhm.
bring on partners, you spread the risk around too. So sometimes it's good, you share in the upside, and when if the deal goes really well, you're like, darn it, I wish I'd negotiated better than 10%, or I wish I had more than 25% of this deal because the property price has doubled and everybody else has made all this money off of my work. But that's how you get into the business. So that's it.
All righty.
Right on.
See you, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice to see you guys. Talk soon.
Bye bye.
as well.
Bye.